Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar, NBS Chorus for students and teachers. So looking at information management specification for the next generation. Today's webinar is going to last 40 to 45 minutes. Everybody on the call, attendees' microphones are muted, but please ask questions, give feedback in the chat mechanism. So I'm joined today by Paul Coates, lecturer in Design and BIM from University of Salford, and also Tony Carr, lecturer in Architectural Technology from the Atlantic Technological University. So today's webinar, we're going to start with a panel discussion. Then we'll have a little look at free NBS resources that are hopefully really useful in terms of sort of teaching resources. And then finally, we'll look at NBS Chorus and how that can be used when teaching specification at universities and colleges. So we'll start now with the panel discussion. Yeah, so hi gentlemen, really pleased to have you on today. I was wondering if we could just say a few words to introduce yourself and the course that you're involved in, maybe starting with yourself, Paul.
Hi, my name's Paul Coates. I head up the Architecture, Design and Technology program at Salford University. The use of specifications is very much integrated within the program, and we're interested to discuss that further today.
Yeah, excellent. And I remember a few weeks ago, I was down in Salford, Paul, at your sort of BIM summer school. And that was a great 3 days where you really had some good representation from industry, really working with the students and showing off the projects they've been doing this year. And our second speaker today, our panelist, is Tony Carr. Hi, Tony. Can you say a few words and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Yes, I teach in the Atlantic Technological University in Ireland, and I teach in architectural technology second year. And I teach a module dealing with project design, building design, and also a specification and tendering module. We are trying to ramp up the use of the NBS software over the last number of years, but especially now, we're really finding very good educational benefits to be derived from that. I'll talk about those later.
Just like fundamentally though, Tony, why do you think it's important to teach architecture, the next generation of architectural technologists, specification as a subject?
Well, for me, it's three-stranded, but I suppose the most important thing is to remove the vagueness. So, there is a tendency in practitioners, but particularly in students, just to be very, very vague and to broadly specify a component or finish. And really what the specification and the software, NBS software does is that it forces the student to really drill down into deciding what it is that they want exactly. Now, I see that as a more complicated matter than it was when I was a student because of the absolute increase in products that are available to students and all of the different parameters that they have to consider when they're composing a specification, be that litigation matters, be that environmental matters, be that cost, be that, there's so many things, and it's very difficult for a student naturally to be able to get their head around that without having the forced discipline of having to write a specification and to be able to use the benefits that NBS Source and the actual Chorus software gives them.
And I think I'm right in saying that you work part-time as a lecturer and you also have your own architectural practice.
Yes, that's right, Stephen. Yes.
So if you've got first-hand experience of if you don't pay enough attention to the specification, what can maybe go wrong on projects over the years?
Well, I do. I suppose that takes me to the second strand that is very good and very positive with where we're at with Chorus now. And the students have really embraced this now. And this is a weakness that I see in private practice, is that a lot of my specifications and my technical drawings simply aren't correlated. They don't match. And there's a disconnect. And what we really find is that when we get into the specification writing with the students, they like it and they get the point when they go through the discipline that I've just spoken of. But what really frames it for them is the coordination with the drawings that they're doing. And they really like that, and it really drives the point home. And without that potential to correlate and coordinate the drawings to the specification, I think it mightn't be as much as of a success at education level. Now, when we teach the students that BIM is not just fancy modeling, fancy images. And what separates the BIM softwares from something like SketchUp, for example, which is also a fine software, but what separates the BIM software is the I in the BIM, and that's basically the information. And so the information is critical in terms of having a robust BIM model, and the synergy or the connect between Chorus and, well, we use Revit. We just find that is really, it really brings the whole discussion and the theoretical benefits from writing good specifications. It brings that full circle whenever we can bring that through the kind of the theory and right through then to the final drawings that the students present at the end.
And Paul, I think that really nicely unplanned takes us to when I sat at Salford University and watched some of the student presentations. I think it was a really excellent one that looked initially at a 3D model of an airport, and then they went like beneath the scenes at all of the information, all of the uses, all of the purposes. Can you say a little bit about, well, just building on Tony's point, really?
Well, there is, you know, there is a precursor almost to the specification, and certainly we talk about the design requirements, the functional requirements, and obviously the specification requirements, and aligning the products to the buildings that they're going in and the expectations. You know, that's all part of the understanding, but the central element, of course, really is the specification. That's the document, that's the record of what is required. So although there's a lot of precursor and we do a lot of work on how to make those decisions, the end result is that specification.
And I remember a few years ago, Paul, you sent me some examples of exercises you'd given your students about, and it was like, in the context of this, write a performance spec, in the context of this, write a more prescriptive solution. Can you say a little bit more about how you actually teach the specification side? Well,
it's very important that they understand where it's appropriate for a prescriptive specification and where it's appropriate for a performance specification, and the benefits and drawbacks of those two approaches. So, but yes, it is important that with prescription, they go into the detail and they're actually asking themselves the questions, well, is this what I want? Because it's only in the detail that really can be clarified. They need to look at all of the different factors. They need to know all of the considerations and make sure that it really does align to what the project really needs.
And what do you have, Tony, in terms of sort of teaching resources or sort of pre-planned questions that lead into the topic?
Yeah, we have, we need to develop that more, Stephen. I can see that clearly, and I suppose that goes for all education. It's always kind of moving and everything is changing all the time. But what we tend to do at the moment is, particularly in the second years, we tend to give the students a lot of specification clauses. And what we do then is we give them then a project brief, and we ask them then to align, to select those clauses that they think are most suitable to the project brief. And then when they do that and they get into the swing of using the software and getting into the swing of actually composing specifications, what we do then is we say, we want you now to change some of the specifications and to give us the reason and in a verbal crit as to why you've chosen to change the specification from what was given to you. And that forces them to do a bit of research, and it just gets them to get, you know, to understand that, you know, in live projects in industry, even you write the best specification in the world, there is a tendency to have to look past that and to have to meet other criteria that springs up. And I suppose the reason that we do that is that it's too much of a blank canvas to say to them, write a specification, particularly in second year. So what we're trying to do is we give them a specification, we get them to align the clauses to the details and the components that they have put together in their drawings. And then as a next step, then we get them to alter the specification based on an amended criteria requirement.
And is that for any aspect of the building, or do you focus in on a roof build-up or a wall build-up? Or
we have been doing it probably too broadly, I would say, and that's why I'm saying we need to develop this a bit more. And I think basically it would almost what Paul is saying, those kind of more defined briefs seems like a good idea to me. And what I'm really trying to do now is trying to drill down and have much more blinkered specifications. You know, might just deal with literally just floor finishes. So just a floor finishes schedule, maybe 5 different products in a building to dealing with floors, and really try and get the students to focus on that. Maybe as rather than having throwing the net too wide and too broad with an overall building specification that deals with just really too much. You know, for the students to really embrace it and drill into the detail.
Yeah, I guess even with flooring, it's not just the floor cover itself, it's the underlay, the skirting, the fasteners, what manufacturers in the market, topics like slip resistance and embodied carbon. I guess you can teach a lot just by looking at one particular system and doing it well.
Absolutely, yeah. And we do I teach architectural technologists, so they're not the absolute designers in the design team, but we do say to them that you guys are the architectural technologists, so you have to bring a certain flair to your technical role. So even just simply getting them to specify color shades and maybe designing a border pattern in the floor finish and putting it to the students that the industry will be depending on them for buildings to have some architectural merit, you know, and that they just can't kind of silo themselves into technical specifiers that deals with building regulations and safety measures, but they have to bring a little bit of flair to the building as well. And the specification forces them to do that and forces them to think more about what it is that, you know, the legacy that the building will leave when it is completed.
And Paul, I'm right in saying that there's a whole raft of disciplines that do your masters. It's not just architecture side of things. Who do you teach specification to?
I mean, it's brought in on all of the programs. There's obviously project managers, QSs, etc. So it's not just the architectural disciplines. I mean, what I would say is, although we get the students to write the specification, a lot of the effort that we make is within the search process. Things like using NBS Source and things like using the guidance that's available in the range of products within the specification is also helpful in that decision-making process. So, you know, it's also about seeing that they're developing their search abilities as well as their specification writing capabilities.
Yeah, and I remember 4 or 5 years ago, we tried to sort of team up with one of the local Northeast universities and get it on all of the desktops. And it wasn't the days where you had to install NBS as a desktop product. And we had all sorts of problems through university firewalls, this and permissions to in. Is it easier now that everything's in the cloud and you just need a sort of username and password? Tony?
Yeah, for sure, Stephen. That is a game changer for me, and also the potential to collaborate within. In fairness, we haven't really done this a great deal, but I would like to get into this more. But to have, you know, the collaboration ability that you can have 3 or 4 students working on one specification together. Yeah. You know, it's very good because it reflects industry and it also allows them to learn from each other and it allows them to cover more ground. So, you know, if we pick up where we were at, where we're looking at floor finishes with one student, you know, it's potential that another student then could be looking at wall finishes and they can present that then verbally in their critiques, and basically one student is learning from the other. Usually what we do is, in terms of teaching, is that when we do the critiques, we would get a second student to take notes of the feedback that the first student is getting. So therefore they're learning from each other in terms of, even though they may not have actually written the specification or did the research themselves into a particular part of the building, they're learning from the other student. And that all, you know, ultimately what we're trying to do is to achieve learning outcomes and send these people into industry in a way that they will be useful in the offices and places they end up working.
And I guess the same question you, Paul, is the cloud sort of changing how you can teach, how you can get people to collaborate, how
well,
you can
ease of access is fundamental. I mean, at Salford we also have multidisciplinary modules, and although the specifications aren't included perhaps as much as they should be, it has a great potential for multidisciplinary discussion and multidisciplinary development. And actually have it be allowing multiple people access to the same documents, you know, that's an obvious benefit.
When you actually teach, Paul, like, do the students have their laptops open now, connected to the internet? They've got 2 or 3 different screens. They could have Chorus open as you're actually teaching specification.
Yes. All sorts of arrangements we have now, which we never had before. Some are online, some are on campus, and but yes, the flexibility of allowing students to do the work when they have time to do it and where they want to do it. We encourage students to be at the university, but there's a great deal more flexibility now with the arrangements that we have.
Yeah, I remember when I was at university in Durham, there was one, I think it was a maths lecture, and you had to walk up the highest hill in Durham in a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and I think I'd like the option of just a little team session for that one.
I think, Stephen, as well, I mean, my experience with the students is that what we're using is our BIM software is Revit, and we're hosting Revit now in the cloud as well. Autodesk, in fairness, extend very good facilities to the students. So what we tend to do now is we have collaborative models that are hosted in the cloud, and a lot of our interface with the NBS Chorus is really through the Revit plugin. So very often the students won't even log into the NBS separately. They'll log into the Revit in the cloud, and then they'll have the plugin there for the NBS Chorus within that interface. So I suppose that I suppose the whole migration to the cloud is really where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we've really tried to do at NBS, and not try to just have specifications as silo, but feed it into that design process. So whether you're designing an ArchiCAD or Bentley or Autodesk product, to have NBS plugged in so it's there on your right-hand side or left-hand side. I think Tony made the point earlier, Paul, that the specification fits in that wider information management sort of picture. Do you see all of those things sort of linking together, Paul?
Yes, I mean, the integrated ways of working is very much what we're trying to get students, used to. And the specification is, well, I mean, in some projects we do outline specifications. Sometimes we take it further, but we try and get them to realize that deciding what is required is almost as important as defining the spaces and defining the forms that are going to be used. And
do you start off by introducing things like classification, the RIDA plan of work, the 19650 workflow, and to really sort of put it into perspective in terms of the process and the information management, Paul? We do, but I would also put sustainability in there as a fundamental as well. They have to be if they're looking at existing buildings, well, we're always trying to find better ways and better solutions, particularly to address the sustainability problems. No, we hear that in every meeting at the moment that we have with customers, that's up there with probably building safety is the sort of two main topics that go across everything. We could talk for hours. I think we've been going for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to finish on one final question, maybe. Tony, how do you or do you encourage the architectural technologists to research and see what manufactured products are out there? And how do you do that in terms of the manufacturer information, Tony?
Yeah, I would say probably just going back to where we were at, the source probably is our go-to point of finding out information on products. A lot of the time students will do research and you'll ask them, where did you find that? And they'll just sort of tell you blindly Google. And, it might be, not that there's anything wrong with American products, but it might be a product from South America or something that just is grossly inappropriate to the construction industry and Western Europe. And so we try and say to them that you need to be careful about where you're finding your information, and you need to be sure that the information is appropriate. So from that point of view, the source gives that quite a good discipline. So sometimes they find that some of the manufacturers' products aren't on source, which is disappointing, particularly maybe some of the smaller Irish companies. that they might be used to specifying when they're out in the offices and their work experiences and so on. So that sometimes is maybe a minor drawback, but yeah, we use source a lot in terms of researching the products. And the truth, you know, I think even if we didn't have Chorus, we could use source as a very good educational tool in its own right, on its own. I tend to allow the students to compose the specifications based on quite a prescriptive manufacturer's data. So if we go into the specification and we find a product from a manufacturer, and we've done the research on the product and we think that it suits, we tend to let the students go with that, particularly in the early years. And we point out that there could be ethical difficulties with that if they're working for a government department or whatever, that just might not be allowed to do a prescriptive specification that absolutely sets out that a particular manufacturer has to provide the component or product. But you know, that's the kind of a strand to what we teach. But in the first instance, the students are quite excited by the ability to identify the uniclass code, and then find that they have a whole myriad of different manufacturers that they can choose from, and pick one of those manufacturers, and that immediately gives them a sense that they are, you know, I suppose like all people, they like an ease. The ease of how that works. So now all of a sudden they've populated an awful lot of the specification without a great deal of effort. But what we try and do then is we try and tease that out. A lot of the time they'll do that with not enough effort, and we try and tease that out in the critiques. Basically questions and answers where, you know, we might point out that the student, maybe through maybe a little bit of laziness, has really picked a product that isn't right, just simply because they haven't given it enough research. And the data is all there. They can go into source and they can find any amount of specification data that points to the appropriateness of what, you know, the product for the application. And it's a question of, you know, trying to get the student to engage with that and actually do it, and not just blindly pick something out that, you know, they think, yeah, well, that'll do okay.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So what I'll say, just to wrap it up, is for those watching, we're looking to do an academic forum probably starting of July, where we it would be nice to do it face to face, but we'll probably do it as a little Teams workshop for half a day or so, and we'll just have a live chat. Hopefully Paul and Tony, it'll be on a day where you can both join us, and just try to create a community of people teaching information management, specification. We'll look at those topics and just try and share best practice, and hopefully at the end have a little forum online where people can share things as well. So if anybody's interested in that, please pop that. In this chat, I've almost forgot that we're recording a webinar. I'm just like having a chat, but there's probably about 300 people watching this. If you're interested in finding out more, please pop that in the chat. But just like to take this opportunity to really, really thank yourself, Paul, yourself, Tony, and it sounds like you're doing a great job teaching the next generation who are coming through. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes our panel discussion. Second part of the presentation today is just lots and lots of resources from NBS that are completely free. Some you may be aware of, some you're not aware of, but hopefully all of the majority be really useful for teaching information management, teaching specification at universities and colleges. Now, what I've got here is our NBS support forum. And to access this, you just need a free NBS ID, and we can send the link out afterwards, or pop something in the chat if you want a link. But at the bottom here, we've got support on like NBS Chorus, got support on NBS Source, Uniclass, but we've got a special area here that we've just created, NBS Chorus for students and teachers. And the idea is that this will grow over time. In particular, I'm keen that teachers out there share their teaching resources. We will share some sort of like boilerplate presentations as well in this area. And then we'll put notes and minutes and things from our sort of workshop sessions that we run as well. But for now, I just want to go to this sort of like free resources area. So it's under content support here. And what I've done is just looked at each one of those sort of 5 topics and put some good links, which hopefully can help. So just go through sort of one by one. Look at the classification area. We've got a set of 4, I think it's my colleague Paul Swaddle has done them, with 4 really good introduction videos to classification as a topic, and Uniclass as a mechanism to do sort of classification on projects. So there's 4 really nice sort of bite-sized 15-minute sort of CPD style videos there on classification. I think I really recommend. And then to get the actual at the classifications themselves, the Uniclass website's completely free. We'll come on to a second how you can browse and search it, but you can download all the tables just in Excel format. If you want to just say, look, give me all this information, you can click on any classification table. You can see what the changes are. So for example, I've already pre-downloaded some of these things, but I've downloaded the Uniclass table for all of the classification codes for spaces and locations. So if I just open this one up, just pop it onto the main screen here. You can see there's like sort of thousands and thousands of classifications for like every single space type you can think of, sort of in the built environment, from police boxes to supermarket shop floors. And there's a real logic behind these. So I just filtered them by group 80, which I think is sort of like transport sector. You're seeing lots of spaces for things like aircraft and baggage handling, go down to road spaces, railway sidings, etc. So that's all sort of completely free to download. And if you just want to naturally just browse and search them, that can be accessed here from the sort of front page of Uniclass. So that very same table, spaces and locations, you can just go through in this nice sort of user-friendly interface as well. So transport spaces, drop down to railway spaces, and you can see all the different spaces. Like if you're doing a drawing, you're teaching sort of civil engineering or what have you, and you want to sort of classify all the different spaces, there's lots of different codes there. And we've got classification tables for all sorts of things. So if you were talking about putting together a master information delivery plan and you want to classify all the different documents, the project management tables there, just teaching students about the different roles in the industry. You can come through and see like the different trades and things. You might have a sort of project roles table where you're thinking, who do I need on this project? So classification is so much more than just the products, tools and equipment, everything from a sort of hammer to scaffolding. So all the raw materials themselves, like whether concrete or steel or timber or what have you. But yeah, there is products as well. So if I was interested in like sort of cladding tiles or what have you, you can search for cladding, filter just by products, and then there's lots of different cladding products there. And there's a structure in terms of sort of, you can go from the sort of 4 deep, but then come up with 3 deep, 2 deep, 1 deep to see how things are sort of linked and grouped together. So at the 3rd level here, you've got lots of different roofing and cladding units. And then underneath there, so that's sort of 3 deep, is 4 deep, and you've got everything from concrete plain tiles to sort of wood shingles. And you can move that breadcrumb trail to find lots of unit products, then products which form part of the skin of buildings, all the way up to the products table itself. And as I say, Uniclass completely free. It's Creative Commons. It's 20, 30 years of history working with different institutions, big client groups like Transport for London, Environment Agency, Ministry of Justice, Department for Education. So there's tens of thousands of codes there, and all available from the Uniclass website. I think the second thing I want to maybe point out, which is hopefully useful when teaching construction professionals, is the manufacturer information that's available on NBS Source. And I just want to look at that. Like we heard earlier from Tony and Paul, how they use it at ATU and Salford, but you can do it from a sort of research point of view, being inspired, looking at case studies, but you can also look at the real technical information, the third-party certification, installation manuals, etc. So first of all, if you just have a look at the sort of inspiration area, there's sort of thousands of stories here provided by manufacturers, and you can just sort of browse around and think, oh yeah, maybe I'm interested in what have you, sort of cafe furniture or cladding or bathroom design or what have you. But if you sort of seed this with a word, so if I search for like daylight, you see all of these sort of inspirational images changed to that sort of topic. And then you can filter that down further by using the filter button and say, like, I'm just interested in daylight on education projects in terms of roof lights. And you quickly go down from sort of 70 or 80 case studies to 30 or 40 roof lights. And then there's 5 case studies from school projects talking about roof lights. You can sort of drop into sort of one of those and sort of read all about it, see the imagery, and then that links to a product itself. And then that product on source from a particular manufacturer has all of the sort of technical characteristics. You can come through and sort of search and browse and research, whether you're going to document that in a Word document or pop it in a drawing or model it or add it to a specification. So the NBS source, just to show like from the other side where you really want to look at technical information, search for sort of triple window. These, without having the big codes, these are the unit class categories. And I can say, I'm just interested in composite window units. And then what you can do here is actually compare the different manufacturer products. So compare the Velvac window with the Rationale window with the Velvac window. And that's going to sort of put them as a sort of auto creator John Lewis type column where you can sort of scan across and see what's what between you. Sort of look at the different window types, all come in different sizes, 12-year warranty on this one, 10-year warranty with this one. Look at the different things like fire standards, the acoustic ratings, like down to the different U values here, which is maybe something you're interested in if you're talking about double glazed, triple glazed windows. And this one actually does have a variant here. So if you do drop to the double glazed window for the Rationale window, you'll see the U values drop from 0.8 and it's sort of gone all the way out at 1.28. So yeah, please have an explore of NBS source, whether you want to be inspired or whether you want to go and see sort of exact. Just one last thing to finish on here is we heard about teaching sustainability. We have the EPD certificates now as a sort of consolidated filter. So if you're interested in carpet tiles, but only the ones that declare their sustainable credentials, you can drop down a little bit here, and there's sort of EPD. And that's consolidated, whether it's like whichever provider of EPDs is there. And you can see you have different like Permatex, Eager, Milligan carpets from all with EPDs. So drop down to this 4-bolt one here, and drop down to third-party certification. You've got the EPD certificate, 40, 50 pages of real good knowledge around the sustainability credentials. In this case, it's an EPD certificate provided by BBRE. So let's just jump back to the third part here. So I guess that's all like research of what's available, how you classify things. In terms of students doing an example project or looking at that process, like the RIBA plan of work, I think for me personally, it's just the best way of describing how a project team comes together, how the different strategic items are looked at, information exchanges at the different stages. And from these links here, you can download the free information from RIBA. So for example, you can download just the basic template. And there's so much here, the material just on this one sort of A3 bit of paper, talking through the different stages of a project, the different taskbars, the different like key actions, like putting together a project budget or making sure you undertake design reviews, writing the specifications for the building systems, etc., all the way through to post-occupancy evaluation. RIBA plan of work, absolutely fantastic resource. And in addition to this now, if people weren't 100% aware, the RIBA plan of work overview guide, which used to be a £30–40 purchase, is now available for free as well. So you've got about 150 pages here that go through all the aspects the background of why the RIBA plan of work is important, and then all the different stages, the special sections on sustainability and procurement, and things like the information requirements and digital. It's a really, really, really good read, 150 pages long, but that's sort of great free resource. And one thing we worked with RIBA at the time was the accompanying Excel toolbox. So if I just pop that on the screen here, this is a toolbox which you can set a pick list at the start. So who's the project team and little drop downs for how the detail gets developed, how the information gets developed. And then you can put into principle the things talked about in that overview guide, like setting up the project roles table for each stage of the project. And then for each of those, say what their tasks are. So at stage 0, you must do X, Y, and Z. There's a nice little diagram of the contractual tree in terms of who's the client employing, who are they employing, what's the different approaches for procurement, how that changes pre-main contract and post-main contract. And then what I really like is also the design responsibility matrix. And working with the RIBA, we see this with the sort of Uniclass third level classifications. But it's just there to sort of allow you to plan the work. It's like, is there going to be any vehicle restraint systems on this project? If not, cross them out. If so, how do you want that design to develop? Who's going to be responsible at each stage? Is it going to be part of a contractor design package, performance spec, prescriptive spec, etc.? So there's a whole sort of set of great stuff there. And what we did at NBS is we created, in particular in terms of the developing the information, we created some support articles around that digital plan of work. Again, all linked from, everything I'm presenting here is linked from this one article, but we've got articles on the digital toolbox, the level of detail, level of information. And if I jump across to the NBS website, they're all accessible from the digital plan of work area. So I'll just drop across here. And they're all linked, but you've got digital plan of work here. When you click find out more, this article here, I'm just going to go through the images. It's exactly what we just talked about there, where you cross out the items that aren't relevant in the project. You then fill in what you know at an early stage. So you might know there's flat roof coverings and floor tiling. And then as the project develops, that then splits into sort of more detail, so peeling more information. And you maybe have one architect that's involved, pre-building contract, and then the main contractor comes on board and brings on their architect and specialist subcontractors, etc. So there's a whole host of articles there on that. Then there's also articles on level of detail and level of information progression. So if I just sort of demonstrate one of those, jump back to digital plan of work again. This level of detail guides you can download, and in terms of sort of level of information development, again, I'll just show the images. How you can go for something like a roof from having just a sort of outline description at an early stage. It's a flat roof. It's going to be fire resistant, 20 years durability, to actually describing those performance requirements, cross-referencing the standards, to ultimately a prescriptive solution being met. And that's the sort of golden thread of decision making, where you've got the solution, you've got the description of the precise performance that's required, and then that links back to the brief, which was asked in the first place, and how that sort of descriptive and prescriptive way of specifying works between design team and the contractors team. And then we have some, like, we talk a lot so far just on information management there and researching what's available in the market. NBS stands for National Building Specification, and we've got a full set of template specifications you can download and share with students in PDF format, both in course format and Uniclass format, with supporting sort of 1 hour webinars with the external consultants that develop these, I can just sit and watch and learn about good practice specification. So a huge amount of resources there. We worked with external consultants and some of the leading manufacturers. And what you actually download is a zip file, one with common arrangement of work section structure, one with unit class structure. And if I just have a little look, you see we've split the specs into different packages, like roof coverings, floor coverings, stairs, sanitary ware paint, but you can also just open the full specification there as well. And if we have a little look, like good tips on how to put revision information on the front cover. Got a nice table of contents here. So you can have a look at, for example, the specification for the internal floor tiling system. And then got an overview at the top. You've got some of the sort of performance requirements, aesthetics, durability, suitability of what the base is like before you do the tiling, and then individual manufactured products, all the way down from things like the Portland cement to the movement joints down to the natural stone tiles themselves. So you can imagine earlier we were hearing Tony talking about good practice specification. Looking at something like floor coverings, it's always nice to see how somebody's done it like to the quality of a real project. And then you can take these learnings when you develop them yourself, when you're learning sort of how to specify. I think there's a nice little preview here as well. If you're specifying sort of descriptively rather than prescriptively, you see there's a whole host of performance clauses here for the window system. So I just click on one of these here. There's performance requirements for the window systems for weather tightness, resistance to wind, thermal transmittance, daylight, fire, acoustics, so etc., etc. And another thing that comes for free with the sample specs, you might notice that right at the start, is a set of sample drawings as well. They're just sort of dumped on a sort of free to access Google Drive. And one of the architectural technologists at NBS put together a set of drawings to accompany the specification. So you can see like what the building looks like, but probably more importantly, what a sort of full set of sort of annotated drawings and schedules can look like here as well. So jumping in here, this has been put together using Autodesk Revit, using the NBS plugin, but ultimately generating a set of coordinate information that gets shared in the common data environment here. So all of those sort of sample specs, sample drawings can be downloaded, including the sort of support articles from section 4 there. And then more on the sort of BIM, in terms of the 3D side of BIM, we're currently migrating that from National BIM Library into NBS Source. So I'll update these links, but just in terms of a brief overview, if you search for anything here, stick on roof lights. Search for framed roof lights on NBS Source. There's a filter on the left-hand side that says, look, just show me the products that have BIM objects that you can freely download. And that's filtered it there. I can say, just show me the ones from, pick the manufacturer, roof glaze. And then you can come and download the BIM object that represents that particular product. And yeah, tens of thousands of objects here. Let's just search for baths. And in particular, the manufacturer Villeroy and Bock have got probably thousands just themselves. But yeah, say if you try to model something like that, here's jumping down to BIM objects. Villeroy and Bock have got these in multiple 3D formats. It's like 3ds Max if you want to do beautiful visualizations to sell a concept, SketchUp at an early stage. You've got Revit, AutoCAD. We've got the basic OBJ file as well, all available completely free on the NBS Source website. The stuff we're migrating over at the moment, if I go to the National BIM Library website, where what was our previous place for sort of 3D objects, some of these free guides are coming across to the NBS.com now, and that includes things like Autodesk Revit templates with all of the shared parameters in the shared parameters themselves, BIM object standard, and hopefully they're really useful in terms of like understanding how to get the information correct and consistent when doing the 3D modeling. So that sort of concludes the free to use resources. And as I say, pop something in the chat if you want to have a little link through to that. And if you want to join us on the first academic forum, we'll probably spend 45 minutes looking at each of those subjects, just sharing experiences, just to sort of try and get that sort of commonality across people that are teaching this subject across the UK and Ireland. And then the final part of the presentation today is looking at NBS Chorus itself. So this is our premium and commercial quality platform that the leading architects, the leading engineers in the UK, across the world, Canada, in the Nordics, in Australia, Middle East, are using to sort of write specifications on the largest, the most complicated projects. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the NBS Chorus for Students and Teachers package. So that's like a low cost offer. It's like a fraction of the price that your sort of large multidisciplinary practices will be paying for NBS. And part of that, you get the support from NBS, help you onboard all the students, change the students at the end of the year, train the trainer session at the start, and absolutely like unlimited licenses. So you could teach to 120 students on Teams or what have you, and every single one of those could be online working on Chorus at that time. But just a quick demonstration of Chorus now and the support that's available. So yeah, just a quick Chorus demonstration. It runs 100% online in the cloud, so you don't have to bother the IT team. You don't have to install it on any university laptops, or the students download it. All they need is the NBS ID, which gets sorted, a sort of startup. And then you log in and you can see all of the projects you have access to. So you could have this pre-set up with a project or two that the students can get familiar with. It's startup, it's part of the train the trainer session. We will set you up with that lakeside restaurant with the example specs that we looked at earlier, but in their sort of rich data format, not just the PDFs. And let's go through some boring stuff to start off with. You get support in terms of onboarding all of the sort of cohort, all of the students at the start of the academic year. So you can give us a big list of all the email addresses, we'll throw them in, and they'll all have permission to create projects, create specs, etc. And in terms of access control, currently this is my sort of pretend organization, NBS Technical Solutions. And you can see that we have 2 people currently on of the 5 licenses, but that 5 licenses will be sort of unlimited, 100, 150 licenses, so all the students can do their project work at the same time. And just to quickly demonstrate sort of how to put a specification together using Chorus is you go to your project where you've set your specification up. If it's a project team of sort of 4 or 5 students working together, you can add those to the project. So you're sort of collaborating on the same specification. And then, for example, if I was going to want to specify just like a masonry wall leaf, I can search for masonry wall and see all the different wall specification templates we have. Or you can use that unit class structure that we've previously looked at today just to browse and find it. And I quite like the browse actually, because you discover lots of things that you maybe don't realize are in NBS. So there's all the different wall and barrier systems, from framed walls, things like partitions, etc., like all the way down to things like gates and doors and windows and barriers. But if we look at walls made of units like sort of masonry bricks, you've got things like dry stone, glass wall, reinforced masonry, straw bale. But if you look at your basic sort of brick and block wall, you'll find it under masonry wall systems, and that's another way of finding that. Before actually just teaching specification, you've got the knowledge on the right-hand side about that topic. So if you want to learn about masonry wall systems, you have what's called the NBS General Guidance. And if you just look at how much content's there, it's pages and pages and pages. This is what people used to have in their sort of libraries and the NBS books. And there's tables that summarize the standards. There's little illustrations that talk about the different details that you have and things. And it's just, yeah, pages looking at that particular topic, and where you can find more information about that topic as well. So what does the National House Building Council standards say about masonry walls, etc. when you come to actually specify a masonry wall system and you sort of add it into the job, then you can, this first clause here, what we call the system outline, it's like a set of questions that the students might want to research and consider. So if you go to something like system performance, if you were writing a descriptive performance spec, what would be the sort of requirements that you put in? Impact loads, design standards, accuracy of the brick and block work itself, etc. And if you want to invoke one of those clauses, you click the drop-down value there, and you pull in the clauses that you want to add to ultimately the PDF document that you're creating. And that creates a relationship between the masonry wall leaf and, for example, the requirement for the design life of the masonry walling or the fire performance of the masonry walling. And every time you click on one of these clauses, the NBS guidance synchronizes on the right-hand side. Now, you may have noticed at the top there, it's got the little yellow circle against it. If as a lecturer, you want to put notes against this topic, you can add your notes in this area, which will go across the school or the college, the university, that supplement what NBS say about this topic. So if you were going to do a really nice module around specifying a wall or floor covering, you could have sort of notes for all students on the right-hand side here. And then the project team working on this can come and add their specification, their project notes in here as well and ask questions. Or if you're marking the specification as a lecturer, you can come in and put notes in there as well. I just want to show how this attaches to the products that we've seen in source. So if I want this wall leaf system to be made of concrete blocks on the outside, as I make that decision, the specification for the concrete block sort of drops in. And that links to all of the generic specs, but also the manufacturer product specs on the right-hand side that we previously saw in source. So an incredible amount of linked information, with Uniclass being that sort of core tree that glues it all together. And something like a masonry wall leaf system has got so many potential products. So just learning how a wall comes together, say, yes, you're going to have bricks and blocks, but are there any special applications? Are there any special applications below the damp-proof course? Whole section on mortar. And you can go through this checklist, and if there's no special applications, you can sort of cross it out there. So it's a little checklist of all the things that you may want to know, and you cross out what isn't relevant on the job. So you might not have any specific applications for damp-proof course. You can cross that out, and then where you've got decisions to make, you've got the guidance on the right-hand side, and you've got the drop-down values to sort of make your selection and choices from. And it may seem quite intimidating when you look like at that the first time, but if you set it up with the lakeside restaurant, the demo specs in, then you can jump here and just have, say, that Uniclass architectural spec in. And what you can see here is all of the systems that we've previously seen in that PDF. So I would come and say, look, I'd like to see the wall tiling systems. And the content you see here is exactly the same content that we'd seen in that PDF. And you can just work through here. Each one of these blue chips is a little hyperlink. So if you want to see the wall tiles, IW306, that drops down, and that's there as well. What I wasn't going to go through today, but the support on the website, I'll add a link, is how you can use the Revit plugin if your students do have access to the Autodesk Revit software as well. And then you've got Chorus on the right-hand side in Revit, and you can link the different products in Chorus to the different objects and details that are being put together in the modeling software. So that's all from me today. I hope this session was useful. It has been recorded, so I know I went through a lot of things there, but we can send a link so you can watch bits of it again. You can jump through, you can share with colleagues. Maybe you've got colleagues at other universities that you think might be interested as well. Maybe you're a construction professional that does the occasional lecture at universities to sort of put a little bit back. Please feel free to share this presentation, this initiative with anyone you know out there in university, in colleges. Any question, any question at all, pop it in the chat and we definitely will get back to you. We'll send a link through for both links, just for the free resources. We'll send that link through, whether you want to teach chorus or not. The free resources are there for everyone. If you'd like to take part in the first academic forum, we'll get round, just have a chat on sort of a team session for 2 or 3 hours into the subject. Please drop that in the chat or drop us an email afterwards. And if you'd like to speak to one of our support team about getting NBS Chorus like into your college, your university, drop us a message as well, and we'll give you all the details about the NBS Chorus for students and teachers package. Also about how we help you get set up, give you support, onboard all the students. And we do it what's called train the trainer. So like have one person that's going to be like the NBS expert, and we'll sit with you for a few hours and just make sure you get started, record that session so that you can actually give the students the best possible start in understanding how to write specifications. Thanks for attending today. Please help spread the word, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.